Hello, everybody. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Alex Cook. I have been playing Pokemon for a very long time. I have a few Worlds invites under my belt, and am most noted for piloting Sableye, Garbodor until Kingdom Come. Recently, one of the decks that me and my testing partner Grady have been working on and has gathered some steam here and there is this monstrosity that you see in front of you. And so I felt like I would take the time to explain some of the choices so that when all of the other content creators get their hands on this thing, they can make better videos for you guys, because I don't make good videos, they do. So if they take this deck, which is seemingly like some people are starting to try it out, you can reference them to this video and be like, hey, before you make your deck, look at this thing. Before you make your video, look at this thing. So this is the deck in its state right now. Before I go into the deck right now, I want to share a little backstory, actually. Because the deck initially wasn't what you see before you. This was the first version of the list that we saw. Yes, very weird, right? We were thinking the way that you beat Jolteon is by using Hitmonchan and just hitting it twice, right? So you either have an Inteleon ping or you clean hit twice. We also thought about using Rubber Gloves and Emboar and Strong Energy and all those other ways to get like Hitmonchan to work as the way to counter Jolteon. Well, we found out very fast that it doesn't do that, because they just knock things out on the bench. They just knock out Hitmonchans. They just take more prizes faster than they need to. So this was the initial list, because we were like, Beedrill in theory counters Single Strike, Hitmonchan counters Jolteon, and then you have some dark stuff. We found out very, very fast that that wasn't true. So we moved it over to this list. This was the list that we had settled on for a very long time, and we actually tested like crazy. Granted, we tested about 50 games against Jolteon before we were like, okay, it maybe has a good Jolteon matchup. We found out that the Jolteon matchup, if you play with Inteleon, they just take Inteleons. Like, they really don't care about the Zapdos. They're going to knock out like one Zapdos and like 3 Drizzile engines, and then you're like, I don't know what to do for these last few prizes. Right? Jolteon was just too much of an issue, even with like Capes, Zapdos, the whole nine. It just wasn't good enough, right? We also weren't playing a full complement of Training Court. We were thinking Drizzile could get us there, but like if people were playing 4 paths to the peak, 1 path would stick, and then we'd just be out of luck, especially with only 2 Energy Switch and 1 Raihan, right? So this is what it then turned into. We were like fine with our Zapdos matchup, but everything else it wasn't doing well into. So then we turned it into a big basics box. We said, hey, you know what? We need something that consistently beats Jolteon, and we found out that Inteleon engines just suffer drastically against Jolteon. So we're like, let's just take the Inteleon engine out. We'll put in Oranguru engines and Rotom Phones as a way to make it consistent. We still have our Cape of Toughness in there. We put in a Galarian Surfetched because we found out if we overbenched Zapdos and they managed to scrapper our Cape of Toughness and take 2 Zapdos knockouts, that a Surfetched as a third fighting attacker could be chilling on the bench, ready to Resolute Spear and come on in there, right? Because our methodology behind that was they can't knock out both Zapdoses and Surfetched in 3 turns, in theory, right? So that was our matchup for Jolteon, and then we were like, everything else covers everything. As you can see, we were really, really, really focused on Jolteon because we knew that we could somewhat soft counter everything else. This version has your Dark Attackers from you, and it has Celebi and Zacian for, in theory, Single Strike. Celebi V remains a very good card that I want to talk about later on. Zacian V was really good because Roar the Sword turn 1 was dummy good just to get energy onto the field, and a full complement of Energy Switch and Raihan made it so that like those cards were always alive. This version I still really like. I think it could be tweaked. I do have like a tweaked version of it. I think the Hoopa that I'm playing now is needed, and I think that the Cape of Toughness could be switched out for Vitality Bands. Vitality Bands helping for the Single Strike math. I can explain that later. So that's what we ended up on, and then we said, you know what, we don't need the capes, we don't need the things, and since we're playing Oranguru and Rotom Phone, we might as well try the Beedrill engine in there, right? Guru plus Rotom Phone plus like Training Court and stuff made it so that Beedrill consistency was actually pretty nuts. Like we could hit 2 Beedrills a game if we really needed to. Sometimes even 3. Sometimes even 0 if they're both pressed. That's happened. Not that I'm salty or anything, but whatever. So this is the current list at its current state. I think there could be some adjustments. So the first couple things I want to point out. Oranguru is... Oh, sorry. This is a sweeping declaration before I get into this. The most important statement I will say right now. If you are building Mustard Beedrill decks, anything with Mustard Beedrill in it outside of Leafeon, if you are building anything with Beedrill in it, it needs to have Training Court. 100 billion million % Training Court. It gives you so much out, or so many extra outs to after the Mustard. If your Grass Energy finds its way into the discard pile, which it very well should, then your Training Courts are always options for Beedrill. You can't attach and then like Mustard and then, oh, I can't Energy Switch my Aurora Energy. Oh no. Training Court just is like, hey, whatever you do before the Mustard, we don't care about. Just hit your Training Court. Training Court is 1 billion % needed for all Mustard decks. I will die on a hill for that argument. The other thing it also does is it actually helps you get Mustard off more often than not, because if you need to quick ball something away, and you need to like get an extra card in your hand because you don't want to quick ball a certain thing away because you also need the Air Balloon to retreat after you get the Beedrill, Training Court helps you get that +1 in your hand. So it doesn't always happen, but it works. It also synergizes very well with Baby Moltres. So Training Court is a non-argument. It's a 4 of. You need it to bounce path. You need it to attack half the time. You're playing 2 Fighting Energies, 1 Grass for the reason of Training Court. It's 100% needed. Training Court actually just busted in this deck. The other thing that I would say that you need in Mustard-based decks, especially single-strike Mustard-based decks, is Oranguru. You need a way to put the Beedrill back into your deck, because if you don't have Oranguru on the field and you draw into your Beedrill, you will be crying because Pokemon communication isn't the thing, and Lord knows we're not going to play Marnie. We tried that. It's bad in this deck. We tried it. Sorry, we tried it. Not good. Oranguru is absolutely 100% needed. Since you're playing Oranguru, you might as well play Rotom Phone because that combo is actually really good. So that's why people always point to the Rotom Phones like, hey, do you actually need these? It's like, well, no, but we need the Orangurus because of Beedrill. So you play the Rotom Phone because they work well with Oranguru. I wouldn't be upset if you dropped to 3, but I don't know how your consistency would look in that scenario. 1 Crobat's needed because this deck is prone to drawing dead. 1 Baby Moltres to checkmate games later. 2 Big Moltreses because A, it's your energy acceleration. We're playing 5 Dark Energies, 3 Energy Switch. So yeah, it's your energy acceleration in order to attack with Zapdos into the Jolteon matchup when they path the peak you. It is also a good attacker into Mew. You need 2 of them. Hoopa is in the list for A, Donks, because if your opponent starts Sobble and cries, then you're like, sweet, here's an Air Balloon Hoopa attached kill. It's good for Donks, but it's also really, 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 really needed for Meloetta. Yes, you can get away by knocking out a Meloetta with a big bird, but generally speaking, you don't want to commit your baby bird to knocking out a Meloetta. That's just not going to happen. You can knock it out with a Zapdos. That's a thing, right? But at that point, if they manage to attack with their Meloetta, right? If they go second attack with Meloetta and then you're like, I'm going to knock out your Meloetta, they're killing your Zapdos, and now they're down to 3 prizes you can't miss at that point. Hoopa gives you a little bit of flexibility when knocking out Meloetta. Granted, Oricorio really screws that up. Oricorio screws up a lot of math with this deck. It basically, at the end of the day, Hoopa is like, hey, we know you didn't hit Beedrill turn 1, and that's okay. Here's a Hoopa to kill the Meloetta. So that's why Hoopa's in the deck. It's also an efficient attacker. We experimented a lot with backup attackers. We talked about there is a Zeraora that like shots Suicunes. There's a lot of random dragon attackers that we had in for a little bit. There was a Kecleon that we played at one point so you could hit for weakness with Kecleon. There was a lot of just really weird stuff. But at the end of the day, Hoopa for Meloetta was the choice when everyone started switching over to Meloetta once they figured out Mew. So Hoopa is, of course, Zapdos V for obviously for Jolteon, but also it helps in a lot of other random wacky matchups. It's also very good against Single Strike. If they roar to a Umbreon once and swing with your Umbreon. They're at 180 HP. You can then attach a Fighting Energy and a Vitality Band and swing for 180 and knock them out. If they roar twice to a single strike, you can Vitality Band, swing with a Zapdos to knock them out. 180 is infinitely better than 170. So instead of having to rely on your Moltres, which is slowly charging itself up on the bench, you can just swing with Zapdos into single strike matchups and actually just win it that way, so that you're not always worried about your Beedrill. Beedrill is needed to knock out the big Umbreon. They're going to go into big Umbreon almost 100% of the time in that matchup. And you need to get Beedrill out. That's the reason why I have considered a Celebi back in this list, and it's the reason why I've considered a second Grass Energy, because you cannot miss the turn that they get their Umbreon out. 2 Meowths should be self-explanatory. It helps you get Mustard. Don't bench it in the Jolteon matchup. Just don't. It's a free prize for them whenever they want to take it. And odds are you've already benched an Oranguru, so that's 2 prizes, and then both Zapdoses. They're going to win the game if you go Meowth, Oranguru, 1 Zapdos, and then some other big V on the bench. Maybe you had to Crobat, maybe you had to Moltres, right? Not good. Not good at all. So don't bench Meowth in the matchup unless you need to. Generally speaking, Jolteon players are not going to attach their speed energies. The reason they're not going to attach their speed energies is because they know that you have to play a Training Court down to bump the path. Your route to victory in the Jolteon matchup is always 100% of the time double Zapdos. There's almost no other route about it unless they're dumb and attach the Speed Lightning. If they attach Speed Lightnings, thumbs up, you just got a free win because you just go Beedrill, kill, you win. Easy. But with Training Court, they're always going to be able to get their basic Lightnings back. If they get 1 basic Lightning, they know, okay, cool, if this guy attacks me, he's going to have to bounce the stadium, and then here's a free energy. So don't bench the Meowth is what I'm trying to say there. The Beedrill is not as important unless they're like, oh, I'm drawing dead and I have to go fast because I'm Jolteon, and Jolteon has to go fast. And you're like, no. You put 0 pressure on Jolteon. 0 pressure unless you draw your boss super early. But even then, your prize map is dummy weird, because if you take 2 prizes, then you have to knock out a VMAX and then something else. It gets really scuffed really fast. Generally speaking, against Jolteon, you're just sitting there slowly attaching to a Zapdos, and the turn they come up to swing, you swing back at them and bench another Zapdos and go, all right, bro, what are you going to do about it? What do you want to do here? I have a Zapdos in the active with 100 damage on it, a Zapdos in the bench with 2 energies on it, and I just hope I hit my Training Court. Don't bench the Meowth in that matchup. 3 Energy Switch, super needed to charge up Zapdos in certain things, to charge up the baby bird in certain matchups, to charge up the big bird in certain things. Energy Switch, super, super good. I've thought about playing 4. I've thought about playing 2. I've thought about playing none. I don't really know the count of Energy Switch. It's one of the most sus things in the list. Ordinary Rod, super needed to get your Beedrill back, to get stuff that you discarded back. I don't feel bad about pitching a baby bird just to be like, hey, I have it, I'm threatening it. Also helps you get back in case you need a 3rd Zapdos in a matchup, I guess. I don't know. It's just helpful. It's a helpful card to have. Pal Pad is needed because I want a second boss and a second Raihan, so Pal Pad, I guess. Second boss is would be super needed. Second Raihan would be super needed. So instead of deciding between the 2, I decided to just split the difference and go with a Pal Pad. So it saved me a lot because I've had to dump early researches to get Mustard, and so then you play the Pal Pad to put the researches back in for mid-game and late game. 4 Pokégear, you're playing a Mustard deck, you need that. 4 Quick Ball, duh. 4 Rotom Phone, already explained it. 4 Training Court, already explained it. 1 Boss because we don't have room. I'd love a second one, but find me some room and then we'll talk. 4 Research, maybe you could find room by dropping to a 3rd one and playing a second boss, I guess, but mid-game researches are super, super important. Again, we already talked about Raihan, you might need 2. 3 Mustard, I think, is pretty optimal because odds are you're discarding 1 anyway. Also, keep in mind that if you Beedrill once or twice against Single Strike, you can use Mustard to Tower of Darkness. Just keep that in mind. I've seen people mess that up. 3 Air Balloon, super, super needed. I would never drop to 2, ever, ever, ever. If you drop to 2, you're either playing a Scoop Up Net or a Switch. Don't play Escape Rope. It ruins your Jolteon chances. 2 Vitality Band, we already talked about. I think it's the Single Strike matchup that's big. I have also won games against random decks that you shouldn't win because 320 is a significant number. So Beedrill hits for 120 and Moltres hits for 200. It's happened. Vitality Band, I think, is needed in the single strike matchup. 200 and 180 are much better. Vitality Band is also really nice if you want to put the Surf Edge back in, because then you can hit for 210, and 210 is even a better number. My phone just went off. For Aurora, considering dropping to 3 so I can play an extra grass energy, 5 darks to hit your dark energies, 2 fightings, and 1 grass. Just to show you all of the things that I have considered at one point or another, is all of this stuff. Things I want to talk about that are here that you're like, well, what's that about? Zigzagoon is the alternative to Vitality Band. And the reason that you would do that is if you wanted to go to Giant Capes, which I realize, or Cape of Toughness, which I realize I didn't even put on here. Zigzagoon as an alternative if you want Cape of Toughness on. The other thing about Zigzagoon is if you're playing Scoop Up Net, which I do recommend at some point, maybe, Scoop Up Net works well with Zigzagoon. Scoop Up Net works well with Galarian Meowth, because you can bench it, roar, Scoop Up Net, bench it, roar again, so you don't have to commit 2 Meowths if you want a double roar. That's why it's in there. And then if you're playing Scoop Up Net's Mew from Celebrations, just kind of makes sense. I've already talked about the Celebi. I think that's good in there. The Banette, in theory, would be for any sort of psychic weakness stuff like Urshifus and things that you want to kill. You get absolutely ruined by Rapid Strike. Banette doesn't help that at all. So, if you want to play Leon, maybe, but that would be about it. So, Banette is cute. We tried it at one point. Cinderace is not cute. I think Cinderace might actually be the key for this deck. You have a bad Duraludon matchup, because you're going to have to knock out a big Duraludon, a Zacian, and a little Duraludon, and it's very hard to do that when they're swinging you in the face for 240 a turn. The only chance you have is the turn that they go into their Zacian, maybe shotting the Zacian. You can't do that any other way. Cinderace is good for that. Cinderace is good for Leafeon. Cinderace is good on the last turn of the game. It's Baby Moltres, but better. It's 2 energy, and you're hitting for 300 on the last turn of the game instead of 270. It's a single price attacker worth 170 HP. Some things are going to have trouble dealing with that. You can 2-shot with it. You can do a lot of different weird, cool things with it. I think Cinderace might actually be the key moving forward to make this deck even better. Just throwing that out there if anyone wants to break this. Cinderace. Would I play a basic fire energy? Maybe. Who knows? One Level Ball. If you're playing the Zigzagoon Meowth thing, then Level Ball makes sense. It helps get those 3 things. I like Level Ball because Level Ball for Meowth is just 3 cards out of your hand like that. What else? 2 Scuba Nuts to talk about that. The second boss is second Raihan. And then the second Grass Energy I think is huge, especially if you go to Celebi or if you're just really worried about hitting Beedrill. So, that is a lot of information completely vomited at you super fast. At the end of the day, is this deck good? No. It's fun. It's a really fun deck. It has really good matchups against Mew, Single Strike, and Jolteon as long as you hit the things in the correct order. But then again, that's like every deck. I think that this deck is good into those things. You can pull off wacky, neat plays. There's always multiple ways to win. It's a deck that those type of decks I really like. I don't like the linear, here's a VIP pass for a Genesect, draw 5 cards, police a Sparkle, do the thing. Turn 1 Mew turns are almost always the same. Don't try to convince me they're not, because they almost always are. This actually is a little bit different, and there's more than one path to victory. That's why I like it. It will lose to random janky stuff. Absolutely get boffed by random janky things. Absolutely destroyed. You have a good matchup into the big 3. If Eternatus starts becoming more and more popular, you have a great Eternatus matchup. You have a great Shadow Rider matchup. You have just good, weird matchups. Duraludon is iffy. They are slower than you. So if you can get like a bird out and just start hitting them in the face and just hope they draw dead, you can win. I beat, 2 or 3 Duraludons the other day? Don't know how. If they're playing the Special Energy Duraludon versions, then yeah, you obviously do well against that because there's Beedrill things. But I have nothing else to fix the Duraludon matchup. I think the Duraludon matchup is just me. You also get bopped by Rapid Strike. Absolutely bopped by Rapid Strike. If they don't check your deck list and they don't know you play Beedrill and they attach a Rapid Strike energy, like, yay. Like, cool. In theory, you beat Sylveon. I think Sylveon's just deader than dead. Suicune you lose to. Again, you lose a lot of random janky stuff. I know I'm forgetting stuff. But that's pretty much the deck list. I wanted to make this quick video. I'm going to go hit the karaoke the karaoke establishment here in a second. But I wanted to share this for any sort of content creator that wanted to use it for information. So share it there. It's not for me. Tabletop Village is the local game store that I play at. I stream with them. I stream on their channel. But I don't know. Again, my name is Alex. This is the deck. We sometimes call it Birds and the Bees, but you know, it is what it is. So thanks again. Shout outs to Brian, the store manager. Shout out to Grady for testing the deck with me. And shout out to everyone that's been playing the deck so far. It's been a lot of fun seeing everybody try it out. So if you have any questions, hit me up on Facebook. I think I have a Twitter you can hit me up on. Find me on Discord. Find me somehow. Someone you know knows me. Maybe. Find me if you have questions. Find me if you did something cool with it or have ideas. I'm very excited about this deck. We'll see you guys.